people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Got massive tits. Like, I'm gonna fucking show it off. Like, I was a bodybuilder for 10 years. I used to stand on stage in a tiny little G-string, flexing and posing and being all cute. And people don't want to watch girls that look like boys box. Like, they don't, well, it's not, I'm sorry, but you know, like it's gonna be very hard to get eyes on the sport by doing the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So we need to change shit up. And I thought, well, I'm the girl for it, because I'll do whatever. I don't give a fuck what people think. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, fuck off. Don't watch me. I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? So if you're an attractive, feminine woman and you're successful in business, then you fucked your way to the top. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's no way she's done that on herself. Mm-hmm. She's way too fucking pretty to get there without fucking, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Bullshit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's society's changed and you got to see it.
I've always appreciated the matter-of-fact approach you get from Ebanie Bridges. She doesn't virtue signal, and she doesn't try to sugarcoat the shit that you should watch women's boxing for the sake of the women because they're women. That's no way to sell a product. No reason to buy into one. Because they're women. So what if they're women? Who gives a fuck if they're women? What's important is whether or not it's a good product, and I believe that Ebanie Bridges, more than some other boxers, really understands that. If you were to ask your atypical, leftist, feminist, whether or not women in boxing should be making what the men are making, or whether or not the women in the WNBA should be making what the men are making in the NBA, they'll tell you, of course, equal pay, equal rights. But then what I want you to do is ask that same feminist, how many women's boxing matches have they watched? How many WNBA games? And that's where you're going to hit a wall. That's where the virtue signaling stops being effective, because virtue signaling in and of itself doesn't sell products. It don't sell the merch. That is where the outcry from your average blue-haired, pear-shaped, champagne socialist stops being effective. So many of their perspectives just don't work in the real world in real time. Now, what does is what Ebanie's talking about, is what Ebanie's saying. It might make some people uncomfortable to think that some guys are looking at these female boxers for more than just their boxing, but whether you like it or not, that is a reality, and you can use that reality to your advantage, if you so choose, because that's the genius of it. It's having the choice and using it. But for a long time, Ebanie Bridges was bashed for choosing to present herself the way that she does by more modest, homely women, sporting a professional record of 9 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 4 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 11 professional bouts. She used to be promoted by Matchroom, now she's promoted by MVP, last in action in December of 2023, approximately 2 years ago, when she lost her belt to Miyo Yoshida. We haven't seen her in a while, but the last we heard, MVP picked her up, and she's yet to make her MVP debut, and she still understands the business more than a lot of women do, and some men. It's refreshing to hear somebody say it out loud, that it actually helps if you have a pleasing aesthetic, if you're curvy, if you've got a big chest or a big ass, pretty face. These are all tools that you can use to your advantage if you so choose, and there's nothing wrong with that. The men do it in a very general sense. Products are easier to sell when you have pretty people marketing them. So why wouldn't that principle apply to boxing, women's boxing? It does help. I can't tell you how many subscribers here on the channel took an interest in a female fighter because of their aesthetic. It was their aesthetic that lured them in, and it was their boxing that made them stay. Fighters like Shernika Johnson, Beluza Muzdiman, Raquel Miller. I see a lot of guys have taken a liking to Sandy Ryan. I see a lot of guys have taken a liking to Michaela Mayer, not just because they're good boxers, and they are good boxers, but because they have a pleasing aesthetic. I mean, it's human nature, and it's naive to try and rally against that behind some blind sense of virtue that you should only see the athletes for being athletes. That's just not the way the world works. That's not saying that every female boxer has to go to their weigh-ins wearing lingerie. No, they don't have to, but the ones that do, don't put them down, don't knock their hustle. Ebanie Bridges' matter-of-fact approach is a big part of the reason in only 11 fights, she's become more well-known than a lot of other women boxers that are more accomplished than she is. Even when she is 2 years removed from the sport, coming off a loss, she's still one of the more recognizable women boxers out there, and the way that she markets herself, well, it helps. Be pretty fucking naive and useless to deny it. Moral of the story is, there are many ways for a woman boxer to market herself, and that's one. That one, there's nothing wrong with that. There are others. But don't knock somebody else's hustle just because you're not comfortable with it, or just because you can't capitalize on it. Different strokes for different folks. What might be right for one, might not be right for some. A man is born. Right, we get it. It's the theme song. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, following its $55 billion deal to take over EA Sports, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is reportedly running low on cash for new investments due to several projects that are said to be in financial distress. What some are interpreting as the beginning of the end for Saudi's endeavor in the world of boxing. A Twitter user who goes by the name P. Curtis said, according to the New York Times, the PIF could be set to close its wallet for the time being, due to several projects that are in financial distress, according to 11 people briefed on its operations. In the end, it's all hearsay and conjecture. Do I believe that the Saudis have run out of capital, run out of money? No. I mean, just the other day, I heard that the Saudis put a bid in to buy Warner Brothers. You know Warner Brothers, the big water tower, the cartoons, the movies, the merch, all that jazz. If they've got enough money to formulate a bid to try and buy them out, that gives me the impression they've got plenty to spend and plenty more where that came from. Say that the PIF fund is running low, who's to say that they won't recapitalize? I don't actually believe that they're running out of money, but just for argument's sake, entertaining the notion that this might be Turki El Sheikh and Saudi's exit from the world of boxing, I mean, I believe that it had to end sometime, even if that's not right here and now. In a very general sense, I always got the impression that these boxers and their teams better get while the getting is good, because nothing lasts forever. So if you're a fighter and you didn't already capitalize on an opportunity to go to Saudi and make a big chunk of change, more than you normally make, you shot yourself in the foot. You're the one missing out, because this ain't gonna be here forever. Like when DAZN first debuted in America and they were kicking out all that money to bring fighters to their platform. They were doing that for a while, but eventually they stopped. Nothing lasts forever, and so I already don't expect that this will. At some point, the opportunity won't be there, so you have to get while the getting is good. Imagining that Turki El Sheikh and the Saudis walked away from boxing right here and right now. Just for argument's sake, what would that do to boxing? Tell you what, it wouldn't do nothing to boxing if boxing didn't do to itself. Allow me to remind you of a few things. Here we go. Showtime's exit from the sport of boxing predates Turkey's entry into the sport. Showtime and Fox were always going to walk away. ESPN, they were always going to join them. Because boxing had problems, structural problems, long before Turkey got here, and instead of remedying those problems, the powers that be compounded them. Too many fighters asking for too much money, resulting in too many pay-per-views that customers aren't buying, resulting in an audience that starts to shrink. We've been all through it. Ignoring fan demand and what fights customers are asking for, fights that either don't happen in a timely fashion or don't happen at all. There was a lot wrong with the sport of boxing before Turki El Sheikh got here, so that if he left right now, and it were left in a haphazard state, it was always going to be that way. It was already headed in that direction before he got here. If he left, it might make it worse, because now fighters don't have him to turn to. He's not the reason that boxing is in a haphazard state, but his absence would be felt. If Turkey and the Saudis left right now and closed the PIF fund, stopped spending money on this sport, what would then happen is a lot of fighters would have to get real fast about what they want to make and what they're actually worth, because the network money is gone. The Great Reset.
What's the Great Reset?
It's a market correction that allows things to go back to normal based on the existing market value of a fighter, of a fight, that if you ain't worth nothing, you're about to find out. You have to sort of think of it like weather patterns. Instability causes storms, and those storms, they swirl and they whirl, and eventually they die down and dissipate.
What's the Great Reset?
The Great Reset is balance, my child. Balance and stability after the storm.
Great Reset would put fighters in a position to where you're either gonna fight for what money is out there, realistic money, or you're not gonna fight. Your career is gonna die on the vine, you're gonna get phased out, and a new crop of fighters will sprout from the ground to take your place, because too many of these fighters think they're indispensable. Too many of these fighters think they're God's gift to boxing, and they're not. Asking for money that literally doesn't exist, and idiot boxing fans supporting their greed, not realizing that drives the cost of everything up for us. For a short while, Turkey has been able to put together fights that would not have otherwise happened by paying above market value. But if he were to leave right now, fights that he put together so easily, in a timely fashion, would then take years and years to make, years and years to build. And some of those fights, they wouldn't happen at all, because guys tend to lose. Shit happens. Products go cold, they go stale, and a lot of fighters would have to get realistic about what they want versus what they're actually worth. Because at least right now, there's somebody out there who's willing to oblige them. But if he left, shit. Some promotional outfits might actually benefit from this tumultuous climate, like, say, Matchroom or Queensbury, because they're not on shaky ground. But if you're talking about Top Rank, more specifically, if you're talking about PBC, American outfits with American fighters that have big demands, I think the Great Reset has already claimed a few victims. Whatever happened to Demetrius Andrade? He hasn't fought since the David Benavidez fight, and we all know why, because he's expecting somebody to overpay him with money that isn't out there and money that he doesn't generate. The Charlo brothers as a package. They're in their mid-30s now, and their careers jointly have lost all traction. Keith Thurman. There's a reason that he only boxed once this year, and it's not because Sebastian Fundora got injured. You could have fought somebody in the interim. Why didn't you? Why didn't you take a stay busy fight? Because that is another fighter that wants money that doesn't exist, it isn't out there, and he doesn't generate it. Why hasn't Errol Spence Jr. had a tune-up fight? 2 years on from his loss to Terrence Crawford, why hasn't he come back? He doesn't want to fight in a tune-up fight for tune-up money. It's got to be a part of it, and the answer is, well, then don't fight. Don't fight at all. Do you think the world is going to stop spinning and boxers are going to stop boxing, that boxing would cease to exist as a sport without Errol Spence Jr.? Great Reset has already claimed a few victims. In truth, it already started. Turki El Sheik's exit from the sport of boxing would just speed up the inevitable. Move that process along. Your demands are going to have to come down, or you don't have a career because you won't fight. Promoters will then be forced to build up their prospects the old-fashioned way over time with local shows, since they no longer have the option of a big Saudi payday. If Turki El Sheik left today, the sport of boxing might be in a haphazard state, but it was already headed in that direction before he got here. Now, I reiterate that in spite of these reports of doom and gloom, I am not yet convinced that the Saudis are leaving, because they could always recapitalize. Remember that DAZN did that after the first few years in the United States. Saudis could always recapitalize. The amount of money they've been spending, it's conceivable that at some point the PIF fund would need to be refortified, because they're spending a lot of money, and it's not just on boxing. They actually spend a lot more money on their other projects. Comparing what they're spending on boxing to that, it's a drop in the bucket to them. So this is just a rumor, and it should be treated as such until there are further developments. In men's light heavyweight news, the Smith vs. Morell purse bid was delayed. Matchroom had successfully requested a 7-day extension to agree to terms for the Callum Smith vs. David Morell WBO interim title fight. The purse bid was supposed to take place today, but teams now have until tomorrow, November 28th, to reach a deal. The fact that they already haven't is indicative of something, that if this were a fight that Turkey wanted to use for one of his own shows, then it would have been done by now. The fact that it's not leads me to believe that Matchroom will be footing the bill, or trying to. On behalf of Callum Smith, who I think was entertaining other options, there was a blurb before the Anthony Yard versus David Benavidez fight that he and David might fight after yard. Think about it this way. You Callum Smith, you've got a WBO interim title, and you've been ordered to fight David Morell. For fighting David Morell, you could fight David Benavidez for his full title, which is a bit better, and likely pays more money. I think that Callum was waiting out the outcome of that fight in the hopes that he could fight David Benavidez and skip out on David Morell, but now that we know David's not staying at light heavyweight, he's coming back in May to fight Zerto at cruiser, Callum has to deal with David Morell, his mandatory challenger, if he wants to keep that interim title. It has also since come out that David Morell has left his longtime trainer Ronnie Shields for El Profesor Ismael Salas, which I think is actually a good fit for David Morell and his base style and Ismael Salas's philosophy on boxing. This actually improves David's chances of victory if he fights Callum Smith, who has only seen action once this entire calendar year.
That was all the way back there towards the beginning of it.
So that the night of the fight in the coming calendar year, it likely will have been a year's time in between Callum's last fight and his next one. And that's not a good thing. Now, I've been going back and forth forecasting the outcome of this fight for weeks and some months now, because initially I favored Callum Smith to win the fight, but now that we see that he will have been out a long while, he will have ring rust to shake off, that David has hired Ismael Salas to be his trainer, I might start leaning towards David Morell.
Might have to.
Oh, yeah, immediately after the Buatsi fight, Callum Smith looked like a man possessed, ready to take on the world, and it was very easy to favor him then, especially given how David Morell had been looking. Looked flat against Radovanje Kalajdzic. He lost to David Benavidez, needed a gift over Imam Katayev. At that point, it was very easy to favor Callum Smith to beat him based on what was going on. But what's going on now, having Ismael in his corner, Ismael is one of the better trainers in the sport of boxing. A good fit for a Cuban-style fighter like David. So now it's in the air. Now I'm not sure. Tomorrow we will get some finality on the matter. It's either they're going to have to reach a deal in a timely fashion, or it's going to go to a purse bid. If it goes to a purse bid, I anticipate Matchroom will win the bid.
There is the off chance that PBC places a bid in for the fight, but Morell versus Smith in America, that's not the kind of fight you break the piggy bank over.
It's a solid fight, one of the better fights you can make in today's light heavyweight division, but it still is a fight more for hardcore boxing fans than casuals, to where you don't want to spend too much money to put it together. And I reiterate, the fact that we've been hearing about this fight for weeks and months, and it's not already made, that communicates to me that Turkey's not the one paying for it, so it must be Matchroom.
And that's why it's taking long.
If they are at the helm of the promotion, I anticipate David Morell may have to pack his bags and head over to the United Kingdom, Liverpool specifically, to give Callum Smith every advantage in this thing so that he can keep his brown belt.
Lines him up for a B-Vol fight.
If he can keep it. Whatever the case is, tomorrow we will get some finality on the matter.